Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's live. My name is Tim Miller. I am a physical therapist and also have my EDD in educational technology. I have made the transition from a clinician to being full-time faculty. I was faculty at Nova Southeastern University for 7 years, and while there, earned my EDD in educational technology. And now I work as Director of Strategic Distance Education for Rehab Essentials, where a big part of my job is, faculty development, curricular development, and those types of things. And then I also, just as a, passion of mine is, helping coaching and mentoring faculty members or clinicians who are looking to be faculty members, transition from, clinic to faculty and what that looks like and going about that. So sharing from my experience, my expertise in those types of things. So um, today what I wanted to share and talk about is, okay, you've landed that job. You went through the whole process of the application, the interview, and now you have a job, and it's like, okay, now what? So this is going to be a three-part series here about it, where I talk about the three main areas that you are responsible for as a academician, working in, as a faculty member, specifically in a PT program, in terms of, what your roles and responsibilities are. So the three main areas are, first teaching, service, and then scholarship or research. So those are the three areas. If you're teaching in an accredited program, which all programs, if they exist, have to be accredited. In terms of that, where you have to show evidence of all three of those areas. So the one I want to focus on is the first part is teaching. So today I want to share, for the, again, the primary purpose of the job that you pursued and applied for and hired for, which was teaching. I always knew, when I was applying for jobs or even got hired, that, there are other responsibilities that you have as a faculty member. And depending on the university, sometimes those other areas are looked at a little bit more heavily, whether it's research or service or those types of things. But they all have, those teaching requirements, and just kind of share, the primary purpose of, the job that you pursued and you were hired for, which is teaching. So um, likely you were hired to fill a specific faculty position or a void, based on your areas of expertise, and you likely have an idea of courses or curricular tracks you're going to have teaching responsibilities. So you may be thinking, well, now, so now what? Like what happens next? So, in this, again, this is going to be brief, just of sharing things for you to consider and for you to think about, because I was once there and thinking, okay, well, this is great. I'm going to be in charge of teaching the course on physical agents. It's like, okay, well, where do I begin? So I just want to share a brief overview of items that you should start thinking about, to best prepare yourself. So first off is, are you inheriting a course that's previously been taught? So that this course is already run in the curriculum and something that you that you're taking over for somebody, or are you building a course from scratch that's never been taught in the curriculum before? Is this a new program, and then you've been assigned a certain course, and you're kind of starting fresh and new? So while the goals are the same, how you approach preparing these courses are going to differ. So in terms of if you are again, inheriting a course or starting, from scratch. One thing to think about is, how much time do you have before the course begins? How much time do you have to build, create, plan, prepare? Is this something that, is happening in, next semester, or is this something that's happening next year? And, again, those are really gonna, help drive decisions that you need to make in terms of, when does the course launch and how much time do you have, and how much how much time do you have to devote to that creation and preparation, and how much of it is already done for you. Something else to consider is, what are the number of credit hours? And this is something that, before I got hired as full-time faculty, didn't really pay that much attention to, or even as a student, in PT school, didn't really pay that much attention to. But as a faculty member, it really matters, right? So it translates to how much seat time do you have allotted each week, for your learners. What days, what times, what hours do you have, quote unquote, class time? And then how much seat time do you have allotted for the outside of the class activities? And, how do you think through that? And, how many weeks are in the semester, right? So again, it's seat time, per week, how many weeks in the semester, and those are all important to know and think about, because time in the form of credit hours, meaning seat time for the learners, and that subsequent class schedule is the main currency, I would say, for teaching and the framework that you have to fit your content in. Because if you have an area of expertise, it's easy to say, okay, well, I want to teach everything that I know about this, which, you may not have time. It's like, okay, well, I have a 8-week semester. So what is it that I need to go over? What is it that's appropriate for the curriculum? And also, in PT programs, or any, if you think about it too, is, what is entry level and what is required of, that we cover via accreditation versus, what's nice to know. So, making sure that you're covering the need to know, not the nice to know. And then, is it a lab class, and are there hands-on skills that you have in addition to, what's quote unquote didactic, that type of thing. So, how much lab time is provided to you, and what skills need to be covered in lab. So, these are all things to begin thinking about as you think through the now what, like how do I think about and plan and prepare, and those types of things. Other areas to consider and think about is, what's the format of the course or the program? Is it strictly a face-to-face, program where, okay, you have, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you have class time from 9 to 11, and what do those look like? And are there activities outside of class you want the learners to do to prepare before you come to class? So, borrowing from a blended model, or is it actually a blended model, or a hybrid, or, there are asynchronous online components that are married together with this face-to-face time. And, what are things that you need to make sure that what does that look like, and how do you plan, and how do you prepare for that, of what's done outside of class, what's done inside of class, and those types of things. And this is something that, you definitely have to keep in mind, even if you aren't in a blended or hybrid type, program. But there's likely going to be outside class time for, maybe reading, preparation, assignments, those types of things. So, um, beyond that, even though you've probably never read them, as a student, much like myself, course objectives, really matter and are the building blocks of your course and the curriculum as a whole. So you need to think through planning course content, assessment activities to meet those objectives. You may have been given objectives that that your course is required to cover, or there may be, you have a framework of some objectives, but you're kind of free to modify them in the way that you want. And again, these objectives are these primary building blocks, and the way that, outcomes are tracked, and those types of things. So they matter a whole lot. And it wasn't one of those things that I thought of at all until I became a faculty member, and also until I got some training, formal training in, education and higher education, of what objectives are and why they matter, and how to write them, and things to consider as you're building your course related to that. Um, the other areas, again, when we think about teaching, a lot of times it's going to be, well, lectures, right, or presentations. So there's lectures, there's presentations, there's learning activities, there's assessment activities. All of those things work together to, so should work together to support one another to meet those course objectives and create a complete course. And they all need to be included in the course syllabus, which, like objectives, are easy to gloss over as a student. Like, oh, here's the syllabus. It's like, okay, let me just see the schedule and let me move on. But again, it's thinking through as a faculty member, how do you allow each of those areas of teaching and learning in terms of presentations, assignments, learning activities, all work together to create a coherent course that you can, make sure the objectives are met, you can track the outcomes, and it can support the program and the curriculum as a whole. Um, so all of those areas, that make up a course require different planning and considerations for how to create and implement them, particularly in using best practices of teaching and learning. And they all have very specific best practices that most PT faculty, especially new ones, are not well versed in, especially if you've just making the transition from, clinic to teaching. It's like, well, I have an expertise in this area of clinical practice, but you may not have that expertise in teaching and learning. And especially, I know I didn't, and that's what led me, to to hire to more education in terms of, well, I know about PT, I know how to teach these areas, but I don't know about teaching and I don't know about learning in the way that I want to. And so, which kind of led me down the path to my areas of expertise, within that. So, I would encourage faculty, just not to fall in the trap of doing something in your course, blank or X way, because that's how, you were taught. There is, what feels like endless literature on the science of teaching and learning and learning psychology on best practices to draw from rather than just repeating tradition. Some tradition are important and work well. Some may just be, well, it's always been done this way, but there are better ways to do it, and also better ways in terms of to help you, think through it. So again, this is where my expertise lies and where I'm most passionate about and helping mentoring faculty in. I know, again, these are everything I just went over are just, kind of things to begin considering. And as a new faculty member, I remember just being completely overwhelmed of where do I start? What does this mean? How do I create this course? It's not just your PowerPoints or however you may be delivering presentations or what you do in class time. It's all of those things and how to make them support each other. So, you know, in terms of the teaching and planning and how, leveraging best practices and considerations, these are things that I go in much more detail, in the faculty mentoring program, in here with Clinical Connections, and something that, I just, love helping and mentoring faculty on. So in the 6-month program, you would get one-on-one mentoring for faculty development sessions, which allows me to help you more specifically, which can really help. Again, it's like, okay, here's my teaching assignment. Now what? And just really thinking through of ways to plan and prepare for that, and especially if you don't have a lot of time, how best to use your time where you're not, wasting time as well. So, being really efficient on thinking through all these new roles and responsibilities. And again, I know it can feel, um, it can feel overwhelming. But in addition, to help you prepare for, okay, for helping with teaching your class, the program can also help you just develop into, into those faculty roles that is a big transition from the clinic or, or those types of things, and, how to best navigate that. So during, one-on-one sessions with, faculty members that I coach, really going over that foundations of building courses and the instructional design is, okay, well, now you want to do these things. Well, how do you build it in your learning management system? And what are ways to help make sure that, you are, you know, creating worthwhile activities for the learners and making sure that you're not spending, a lot of hours in development or a lot of hours in grading, or leveraging, how to best use your time and how and help set yourself up for success and your learners, up for success. And again, that includes, creating those assignments or learning activities or writing exams or writing rubrics, or even, writing objectives, and, building a syllabus, and, kind of working backwards that way as well. So, if that is something that you'd like some support and guidance in, you can direct message me, or write teach in the comments, and we'll be happy to reach out with details of that faculty coaching program, and happy to answer any questions that you may have. So I hope, again, I know this was a brief overview of just things to consider, but I hope you learned something new today. And oh man, I didn't really think about that. Or wow, this is a lot more involved than I had anticipated. So go ahead and just, if you in the comments, if you have any aha moment or something that stood out, or something you learned, or something you may be concerned about, we'd love to learn about that. So I want to thank you for watching, whether you're on Instagram or the Facebook group or even on YouTube. And again, if you have any questions about what I just talked about, feel free to message me or leave your questions in the comments. So thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch up with you next time.